So last week, we looked at some typical forms of real estate ROI. Now this week, let's look at some that you may not have heard of. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Gulf Coast Investing, where we look at all things investing right here on the Gulf Coast. My name is Casey, and I would love if you would like this video and consider subscribing to my channel so you get more beautiful beach pictures just like this. Let's get into the video. So there's some other real estate opportunities out there that some people may have heard of and some may have not. So things like being a wholesaler. There's other things like hard money lending, and then the Burr Strategy. So let's get into some of those and see which ones you may have heard of, which ones you may not have heard of, and maybe you'll learn a little something even about the ones you have heard of. So we're going to hit a couple that you maybe haven't heard as much of. So the first one is becoming a wholesaler or wholesaling. So a wholesaler, again, check your state laws, rules, and regulations. Some states you have to have a real estate license to be a wholesaler. So again, by real estate law, you cannot advertise that you're selling a house unless it's your own house, your own house, family member's house. There's a couple different rules in there. So unless it's your own house, though, you can't advertise or sell the property on behalf of a stranger, a friend, your next door neighbor, unless you're a licensed real estate agent or sign on with the company and go through the MLS. So wholesaling is a little bit different. Wholesaling is where you are actually advertising the contract that you have. So again, it's a little bit, legal words, back and forth. That's why some states have actually outlawed wholesaling unless you have your real estate license. So all in all, easy, quick math. I go in, I find a property, I do marketing through bandit signs, yard advertisements, internet advertisement, internet leads, phone calls, cold calling, things like that. I find a seller and they want $50,000 for their property. They're like, hey, family member just passed away. A lot of times you see people that are, maybe moving to a retirement home. A lot of times the property's, just in a little rougher shape and they can't sell it. Maybe there's things wrong with it where it won't pass an appraisal or an inspection, so they can't go through the traditional routes of selling it. And so they want somebody to say, hey, I'll give you $50,000. So you sign a contract. Again, there's people that do this specifically, that do wholesaling. So if you really want to get into that, we'll get into other videos with that. You can also look them up, on YouTube and online. But again, you sign the contract, and that contract states, essentially, I'm buying this myself or assignable to someone else. So I buy it, or I have it under contract for $50,000. During my due diligence period, I go advertise that contract that I'm selling a contract. Again, I'm not selling the house. That's the seller that's selling it. So I'm not advertising I'm selling the house. I'm selling the contract, or essentially I'm assigning the contract to someone. So you get people in there, flippers, people that are flipping, people that are buying and want to hold on to it. All different types of investors come to you. It's great to have a good list of them. So you email them out, they come to you, they go see the property during that due diligence period, and they say, okay, I like this, I'll give you $60,000 for the property. So you write it up, you assign that contract for $60,000, you get to closing. Again, the seller, you have it under contract for $50,000. You're selling the contract itself. They're buying it for $60,000. So you collect the spread. So that's a $10,000 spread that you would collect, and that goes into your pocket. That goes, back into your business for your marketing and to find more deals. So essentially, in a nutshell, that's wholesaling. You get a property, you find a property, distressed seller, you get it under contract for X. You find a buyer, you're essentially the middleman. You find a buyer, you sell it for Y, and you collect the spread, whatever's in the middle. That could be $1,000, and there's deals that are all the way up to 70, 80, $90,000 spreads on there that the wholesaler would collect. Another one to look at that kind of goes along with wholesaling, it falls under the category of not as heard of or not as popular unless you're really in the real estate world, and that's called the Burr Strategy. So Burr, BRRR. So you buy it, you renovate it or rehab it, you rent it out, and then you refinance it. So again, That's a whole nother video in and of itself to go over that. But again, that one, you find a distressed property, kind of like you're flipping it. It's kind of like what we talked about back in the flipping section, if you're going to flip it and then rent it back out. But this goes one step further. So again, this one's a little more advanced. You have, professionals and people on YouTube and all over the internet that you can find that specialize on this strategy. But again, you buy a distressed property, you renovate it or you flip it, you get a renter in there, so you get that rental income, and then you go to a lender and you refinance that property and you get a big chunk of your money that you invested right back out of it. So typically, again, to use simple numbers, that'd be like somebody that used, you have $100,000. Again, you buy the property for $80,000. You put $20,000 into renovating it and getting it rent ready, so you're in it for $100,000, and then you put a renter in there. So when you go to refinance it, the appraisal or the mortgage company is going to not only look at what the house itself is worth, so hopefully that $100,000 you've now made it $120,000 or $140,000. They're also going to even look at, hey, well, now it's an investment property. You have a renter in there, so it's even more valuable because it's making you money every month. So that's what they look at, when they go to refinance that. So hopefully, again, you put $100,000 in. They say, hey, this is worth $160,000. We'll give you 50, 60, 70. What you want to go for is 80 or 90% of that money that it's worth. We will give that back to you. So you get a large chunk of your cash handed right back over to you. And so then you can go and you take it and you do it again. So again, there's courses and gurus out there that literally built their living off taking the same chunk of $100,000, putting it into a property, rehabbing it, renting it out. When they refinance it, they get a big chunk of their money back out. They take that same money and they go put it into another property and do it again and again. So a little bit harder this day and age, but it's definitely something that's not as popular, but it is another way to look at that real estate ROI when you're looking at different types of ROI. So kind of the last thing that we wanted to hit here is hard money lending. So this one, again, is for, the higher end investor, the one that has a lot of money and that's very experienced. So you can go to, if you didn't know this, if you don't have the cash to buy a property, if you can't afford the mortgage or you don't qualify for a mortgage because of credit score, down payments, different things like that, you can actually go to what is called a hard money lender. Now, whereas a regular mortgage may be 6% or 7% interest, a hard money lender may have different stipulations on it. They may be at 15% interest. But again, usually it's a little less qualifications and they're looking at the property itself. So there's big national companies that do hard money lending. But as far as you go as an investor, you can look into hard money lending yourself. So obviously you definitely want to have contracts involved. You want to have lawyers involved. But if you go find a friend or, a coworker and they're wanting to do a real estate deal and you say, man, I would love to do that, but I don't have the time to renovate it. I don't have the time to get a renter in there. I don't want to get 2 a.m. phone calls, but I do have the cash that I want to put in the ball game. You can become a hard money lender where you go to that friend or investor, client, coworker, whatever, and say, hey, you need the $100,000 to make this happen. I don't have the time. We're going to do a contract. We're going to get our lawyers involved. I'm going to give you this $100,000 and you're going to pay me back 10% interest until I get my full money back. Other terms to look at is, hey, I'll put the $100,000 in if that other person's going to flip the property. Hey, I'll put all the money in, you put all the time, you put all the labor in, and at the end, we'll split the profit 50-50. So that's another thing that you can look at when you're looking at overall ROI and different types of ROI that maybe aren't as known or aren't as popular, is being a hard money lender.